This is episode 30-something of the Long Run Archives, joined by friends, colleagues, Jeff Colt and Brett Hornig. I got to lead us into this with one of my mystery topics, which is just going to be this ode or nod to pedestrianism. I've been recovering from a little jaunt in the 100-mile wilderness the past 6 days, and I have enjoyed making Strava maps for these pedestrianism journeys where like I leave my house and I go on a 5 to 6 mile walk and I make a stop at the local coffee shop. I stop at the bookstore. I try to go on some streets that I've never touched before, so that heat map gets expanded out. And like today, before this episode, 2 hours, 6 miles, talked with our local postal carrier dude, talked with the person at the counter at the bookstore, and I feel like it's back into the 90s again, like pre-technology and stuff. And so for anyone out there that's recovering or just into it, I'm having so much fun walking right now. And I just wanted to lead the episode with that. Like I'm feeling really good coming into this one because I went on a long walk and I raw dogged it. There was no technology or anything.
Finn is just a character in a Richard Scarry book. He's meeting the sailors and he's meeting the postman and the librarian and the baker.
Finn explores Busytown.
Yeah.
What shoes did you wear, Finn? 2 hours, that's a long walk.
Dude, I wore, and I don't know if I should count it, but I wore the, for conversational pace, I wore the Mountain Coast H1s.
Hey, that's an appropriate shoe for a Busytown walk.
Dude, it was a great bit. Yeah. So, it was just, I had a fantastic 2 hours out there. It's a nice, crisp fall, sunny day here in Salt Lake City. And I think I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to just build out the heat map here. I went down 3 or 4. I've lived here for 10 years and I went down 3 or 4 roads that I had never touched before in Salt Lake. So also like when I go running, I find that I just get into these ruts and the heat map it's just rutted out, and I broke it. Like you can break patterns on walks, I find, because I don't care as much.
It's such an interesting like rut versus the word groove.
It's actually
like when you're in a groove versus you're in a rut, yet they're the same thing. You know?
I know.
You might be in a Strava, heat map groove now on your walks. Finn, congrats on 100-mile wilderness, to back up a little bit. And also congrats on enjoying pedestrianism.
Yeah. And honestly, the real inspiration for it, this is a little bit inside baseball. My brother lives back on the East Coast and he lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and he's running for office for city council. And his platform is 2 things. It's build more bike lanes, which is a huge issue there, and build more housing, which is another huge issue. And basically all of the candidates in the race come down on those 2 issues. Are you pro bike lane or anti bike lane? Are you pro housing, anti housing? So he's those 2. And he's just been like getting after it on Strava, logging them out. Like I think he's probably knocked on thousands of doors in the past 3 months. And so we talk every so often, and it was also motivated by that. So
just like the most calloused knuckles from knocking on all the doors.
Anyways, that was my random one. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is just, again, I don't want to get too political, but the government just shut down today. We're recording this on Wednesday, October 1st. And I just got an email from, because I'm a race director, obviously, got an email from Kathleen Baker at Runners for Public Lands. And it was this whole worksheet, info sheet on if you're a race director, what you can expect over the next few weeks if the government remains shut down and your race touches BLM land or NPS land or U.S. Forest Service land. And it's really interesting. And I thought, because, Kodiak by UTMB is coming up, and I don't know exactly what the situation is there, but this one sheeter is actually it's a little uplifting to me, because basically, unless you have some really built out safety standards or comms with the Forest Service, you can actually let these events can actually go on, especially on Forest Service land. Like if Twisted Fork was happening, for example, during the shutdown, because of our relationship with the Forest Service, we wouldn't really be affected. Interesting. I did not know that. So that was a cool little, again, it sucks that the government is shut down and people might have to pivot, but it's interesting that it's not so cut and dry as like it's either on or off depending on whether the government's up and running.
Or is it a scenario where like Twisted Fork can now have like 7,000 people in the field because it's just like go for it?
Yeah.
Twisted Fork by UTMB, just wheels of cheese, thousands of people.
I mean, I'm sure you could end up having more people for your event if it was during a shutdown, but I am sure when the government is back to funded, the U.S. Forest Service would likely not be stoked with you.
Yeah. You'd be screwed. Your relationship would be totally tarnished. But yeah, I mean, I don't know with Kodiak if it's something different. Like it sounds like they have been making changes to the course right up until the last minute, and if that's the case, they might be out of luck because if things weren't finalized before this shutdown happened, I don't know how you rectify that. But if everything was kind of set up and ready to go, it sounds like you could be in the clear. So, anyways, who knows?
I don't think you're alone on the uncertainty around what's going on with Kodiak. I think a lot of people are still confused and uncertain around what's going on in terms of the course, in terms of what the route is. I have a lot of folks from the Roaring Fork Valley here who are heading out to Kodiak and not really sure what to expect, but I'm fit for a 100-miler or I'm fit for a 100K. So,
and this is the America's Major we're talking about. It's not just any by UTMB race. This is the brand new, as of this year, America's Major. So,
man, how interesting would that be if like you signed up for a race, but then they actually just don't release the course details to anybody until day before, the morning of, and then like everyone just lines up and follows flags and goes. That would be kind of an interesting format.
I mean, I don't know how many people were actually projecting these courses before 10 years ago, right? Like, I also wonder if, as someone who showed up to a lot of races knowing nothing about the course, including like Black Canyon in 2022, it's like, I guess I'm going to run it and see how it goes type of deal. I don't think it's that different from, that era where if we didn't have CalTopo or GPX files or Strava watches or, whatever, we're kind of running by the seat of your pants. You're running like uncertain of what's coming up. I've got to imagine that the smartwatch is a like indicator in the history of like times on courses, just based on, especially longer courses, just based on people like, oh, I actually know what this route is going to be like. Think about Barkley, like, is it Ratjaw is like the big hill?
One of them.
Like, it's like, oh yeah, there's just named climbs out there, but you might not know anything about those named climbs. I think a lot more races used to be like that. Do either of you actually like run with the profile of the course on your person at all to like know what's coming up?
I have for some races where, like the first time I ran Western States, I had the elevation profile on my watch because I had a hunch that I would just be so loopy in like the middle points that I would, you just get kind of stuck in like the tunnel going up like El Dorado or Devil's Thumb, and it's just like being able to check my watch and see that I'm like, oh, I'm 70% of the way there, like helps chunk it out so much more than as opposed to just looking up and you're just like, well, I can't see the top yet, so who knows?
I'm the latter. I'm typically the runner who has no profile on me whatsoever. Like, I think UTMB prints it upside down on your bib, which is actually kind of helpful, but like obviously you're not the dot there, but you can at least be like, I'm past Courmayeur, like I have a climb coming up. But that's typically like the style of approach I have, is like I know where some of the big climbs are, but I'm not following or like tracking myself on them. I've never loaded a route into a watch with the exception of Mahoosuc Traverse.
I've increasingly become a fan of optimizing the watch face. I used to be in your camp, Jeff. Like I would either just go off vibes or intuition or like no technology, no assistance. But the more so that I've gotten into these multi-day things and gone through the night, I find those sections can be super discombobulating. And if, like Brett said, I can have the climb on the face or I can have distance to the next checkpoint, it's like a little added kick for me. I know sometimes for people, numbers can be overwhelming. You don't want to see the data. I totally buy that too. But yeah, if I want some direction as to where I'm at in the moment, if I can just like lean on that, I can break the race up into chunks. It's huge.
The jury's in. That was a 10 out of 10 on word use of discombobulating. Super fun word to hear.
Better than rut or instead of groove.
Yeah. Really good. I love that.
Multi-syllables.
I think Rachel Entrekin was putting out there like which watch face should she have on her watch going into Mammoth. And I think that was more so like which background, but like it actually made me think like, I don't actually customize any of the settings on my watch. So I could probably do way better there.
It's a game changer.
I'm just like, all right, I guess I'm looking at my average pace right now.
The worst metric.
I still haven't quite figured out how to get it to show me like the amount I've climbed total. I can only see the amount I climb each mile. So like I might be a bad example of someone who's actually using their watch well. I also just like, it's never been something on the front of my mind of like, am I 18,000 feet, into this race already? Like often for me, that ends up tricking me and screwing me over, because then I'm like, wait, I know this race has 23,000 feet of climbing and it says I'm already over 24 and like, or,
Jeff, are you the type of person that when you get a new phone, you just like turn it on and start using it?
Interesting you say that. I'm not quite that, but I've never used Siri, and I refuse to use Siri, and I don't want my phone talking to me.
Don't worry, Siri's using you. Don't worry about it.
I know that, but at least like, that might be an indicator of the type of phone user I am.
Right on.
I still use Shazam. That's the one. Like when I'm in the car listening to the radio, and I still listen to the radio, by the way, I will ask Shazam or Siri. I guess Shazam got bought by Siri, so I ask Siri to tell me what's playing on the radio if I need to know the song. But that's my one use of Siri right now. I'm also not really a Siri user.
I don't have an iPhone. So
that's crazy, dude. That's why in all of our group chats, it's just.
I know. Me and Jimmy are the ones who screw up the group chats. Although they're getting a little bit more integrated now, but I don't have to deal with Siri.
Okay, let's talk about Worlds, Brett. Obviously, there's a lot to dissect here. Not putting the weight of the world on you. Just one takeaway. What's one thing that stood out to you from last week?
There was some very dominant performances. Like some of these races got won by absolute landslides, and I guess my expectations going in were maybe slightly closer or not like full on wire to wire front run races. I'm not saying that like made it less exciting, but like if I were to predict like this is how this race is gonna go, I wouldn't have picked so many of the races to just be like absolutely dominated, which I thought was just interesting.
Why was there such dominance, do you think, especially in a field where, again, everyone is elite, but there were still people that were just like head and shoulders above?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out, like, Jeff, I'd be curious about your thoughts on this because you've, been there before. But like, is it like kind of, this is one of the few races where like this many of this person like all line up and race each other? It's like, there were some people that like I had never heard of that then looking back, I'm like, oh, you have some amazing results, but not necessarily at races that I'm following all the time. It's like you almost don't have like a game tape on as many of your competitors.
Canfranc is definitely unique in that compared to Innsbruck or Chiang Mai. I think what you have with Canfranc, and my main takeaway is like, I really wanted to race this Worlds. It's not like, yeah, I want to be back on the Worlds team. I wanted to race this course. And this course, like the number of people I've heard say, that was the most beautiful course I've ever experienced. That was the most beautiful course I've ever photographed. That was just like the most striking landscape. This area of the Pyrenees looks so special. And watching the live stream, like truly spectacular. I think, Brett, what you're alluding to is like this course is the cross section of sky runners, orienteers, and ultra trail runners. And like seeing Tove Alexanderson win by so much in the women's short course, I think surprised a lot of people because they didn't necessarily follow her career or, expect her to be the front runner, yet alone like blow the competition out of the water. If you look at sky running results, sky runners basically like sure thing to do well in this terrain. And it just goes to show like this terrain, a lot more technical, a lot more challenging. The US doesn't have a strong culture of orienteering or sky running. Like we're pretty bread and butter, trail and ultra marathon running. And I think it's fair to say on like generally flatter, smoother surfaces.
Mhm.
Someone pointed out like on the men's long course team, there were, or maybe between like the men's long and short course, there were like 4 or 5 like former JFK winners. Like JFK is about as opposite of this race as you can get. That's not to say they're not incredibly talented runners and couldn't have success there, right? But I think the sky runners excelled in this terrain, and orienteering, it's also a bit of like an anomaly to me. I don't follow orienteering, but that's more in line with I think what's popular in the UK and Scandinavia, where like you do have a lot more of this, like you're running over grass and like lumpy terrain, lumpy trails.
Do you think that we unfortunately had some people on the bench that actually do bring sky running-esque talent into the fold here?
Possibly, but like no immediate names are coming to mind in terms of like folks on the bench. Like I just think it would have been
have like Kyle Richardson racing this thing.
Maybe, right? Kyle might have been actually like an awesome fit for the short course or something. And like I was the alternate in the long course, and like I think I could have had a great day out there, but more than anything, like I just wanted to run in those mountains. They look so special. The hard thing to gauge is I don't think there's an analogous like, oh, this would be a good qualifying race for this terrain, really, for anything other than the up, right? Like just like running uphill is kind of running uphill. Even the classic of like up down, I think is harder, to replicate. But for the short course and the long course, this is just not terrain that the U.S. has much of. And on the men's and women's side, there were still some really dominant, strong performances. And Brett, with your comment, Tove Alexanderson winning was a dominant performance. Nina Engelhard might be the story, of the whole championships in my mind, winning the up and the up down. I don't follow Nina very closely.
You can't. There's nothing out there.
Yeah.
There's nothing out there to follow. She has no Instagram, no Strava, no LinkedIn, nothing.
Yeah, those are both like incredibly strong performances, and seeing her actually run, like an incredible runner. But like Katie, I do follow closely, and Katie was matched up against the best runners in the world again, and
she dominated.
Pretty much had the most dominant performance of the weekend. I think Tove Alexanderson technically had like the maybe the highest like index score ranking a woman has had, but Katie won by like close to half an hour. Yeah,
kind of both. Like Katie, I mean, Katie got to play defense after a while. Of like when she was like going through some of the aid stations, it was like, cool, I get the extra minute to like make sure I can ask gaps and like, get everything I need to, like no rush, which is nice. And like a lot of times that smoothness adds to, can actually be faster. But that was super interesting, just dynamic to see across the world. Did you watch a pretty good amount of the coverage? I mean, I know from where we were, the time zones were not great. I watched a lot of the replays like in the morning after the races where they're like already finished, and just tried my best to like not look at my phone.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. I would like start the live feed at 6 a.m. and kind of zoom ahead when there was just like not much happening, and try to follow along for the short and the long course, the up and the up down. I just like watch the replay of Remy, another huge dominant.
Yeah, I wrote down Remy's name. I was like, Remy's so good when he's just like ready to go.
Yeah, I mean that was crazy. Like he was leading.
Like no one even tried to go with him after the first like 10 minutes, 5 minutes even.
Yeah. So on takeaways, I think one of them for me was just the presence of orienteering and sky running and how competitive those disciplines are. And they might not be the disciplines that are getting the most airtime. I would put orienteering, like in the US, orienteering is definitely after like set time races on the track. Like you really don't hear much about orienteering at all.
Yeah.
I don't, at least. And there's some incredible.
We got some geocachers in the audience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the only person that comes to mind is like Max King has done some.
Yeah.
Like Max King, like 10 years ago, would have been incredible on this course. I mean, I know he ran all right this year, but like 10 years ago, Max would have been like lethal on this course. Jeff, you were talking about how this course, from an American standpoint, is like a really hard one to like have a qualifier for. Would it be crazy for like, depending on the world's location and what the course is like, to either have a qualifier race or not and just go full application only?
I mean, I actually was thinking about it. The next Worlds is in Cape Town. Like, I think if the US was smart, USATF, MUT, if you guys are listening, like, why not have the qualifying race next year at Ultra Trail Cape Town? And I know that's super far away, but that gives anyone who's interested in running like the opportunity to be on that course. Maybe that's just like incredibly like ableist of me to say, like, it costs a ton of money to get there. Like, I've never made the trip down there, but it's going to be on Table Mountain, and like that's what Ultra Trail Cape Town does. The other takeaway for me is France's team execution of not letting anyone race UTMB or race for the kind of month and a half leading up. It worked pretty well.
It worked. Yeah.
They got a lot of team medals, but they got 1 gold in the men's long course, and for their runners to come 2-3, 10-11, I think is what it was. Like, that was a dominant performance, and watching it was just like, gosh, I am tired of seeing these like orange red shorts and white jerseys running together. So I think the like team training dynamic that France implemented and like the rest before the race were, I think, successful.
Seemed like the CCC Worlds double was a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I called around to a couple athletes after this just to get some info for this episode, and all American athletes, and they were all blown away. Again, like as you're describing, Jeff, with the confluence of orienteering, sky running, etc., just how extreme the course was, and how amazed they were that it could even get permitted from like an insurance liability standpoint, like the imminent danger out there. I mean, for example, Caleb got knocked out early, like a knee injury, hit a rock, and so I do think there is maybe some value in putting some of these qualifiers out across the world where you can get the specificity, because there are very few events on U.S. soil that come to mind that could come anywhere close to mimicking this type of terrain.
One of the other pluses for basically a pro only race,
Yeah,
you can make a more dangerous course because these are pretty much all professionals at this sport.
Yeah, I wonder how much like Spain was trying to lean into their advantage too. It worked in the men's team like short course, like they did incredibly well. But I don't know how much more popular sky running or orienteering is in Spain, but in the lead up, I heard numerous times people be like, there are like beautiful trails that we could be running on, and instead it's just like we are going over grass and going over lumpy ground and like going over rocky ground, and were I setting the course, like, yeah, I think that's a good way to really shake things up against, a team that might be coming with more of a like thoroughbred running roster. Jim also had an amazing performance. Like Jim Walmsley was with 2 and 3, I guess 2, 3, 4 until like halfway through the race, and then he gapped almost 10 minutes just in the final half of the course and ran incredibly well. But I think it also goes to show Jim spent a good bit of time in this type of terrain, and whether that's in the San Juans or over in the Beaufort, like he's familiar with it. I heard Katie say like this is actually the type of terrain she trains on. Like she really likes this terrain, and that checks out. Katie's always been pretty attracted to really challenging terrain, whether that's not runnable and just hikeable or it's challenging to run over. So yeah, maybe there was some conversation before this year's qualifiers after the announcement of Gorge Waterfall for the long course. There was a lot of conversation around like what is the right type of qualifier. it either like it's hard to say if that qualifier also needs to happen in the spring, like to be respectful of folks trying to run Western states. And I get that there needs to be an element of respect for Western states and UTMB. Those are super important. I also like say kind of, so what? Like there's a select number of runners who are running Western states. And if the qualifier weekend would be better to be that same weekend and have it be San Juan Solstice, like people are going to show up to that and try to make the world's team. And that might be the better terrain. There's also conversation of like, what if we design a qualifier that like this race is the like right type of race for a world's qualifier in, the San Bernardino Mountains or somewhere in, kind of Southern California, Nevada, where it is like steep, rugged, and also dry earlier in the spring, and all potential options. But I think team selection, to me, one of the things that frustrates me is just like the inconsistency, even just between short trail and long trail. Like, for short trail, it's the top 3 at the qualifier and then 3 resume. For long trail, it's just the top 2 and then resume. For the uphill, it's only the top 4. For the up down, or like however it kind of goes. It just
you're right.
I think it would be great if it was a clean slate of like, this is the qualifier. Worlds is an important competition. And I think at this point, it's fair to say that Worlds is on par, or, in terms of like tier of importance, like maybe there's UTMB Western States and Worlds is next.
Mm-hmm. You think it's at the same level or just below?
No, I think it's like just below, but part of that is like, maybe it is same level because it's every other year, and folks are like leaning into the value of that. I think from an American lens, it's probably just below. I think from some other countries, it's maybe even the pinnacle.
Yeah, it did seem like, like France seemed to put more weight on, Worlds. Spain seemed to put more weight on Worlds. Can you imagine the like the backlash that there would be if, like, for track and field, the Olympic trials, they just announced like, oh yeah, for these events, we're just going to do 2 automatics and then we'll pick the third. But then these events, it'll be third. I had never really thought about how inconsistent making the team, like how you make the team is for all the different World's trail teams. And I agree with you. It should be a little more consistent, because that's just easier to follow too.
So yeah, I don't think it's ever been, and this is also like, if we're going to critique anything about USATF, MUT, like it, I think can be their website. Again, this is like all volunteers. I have a ton of respect for everyone who works there, but like finding like what the championship races are and having this stuff scheduled out so that, like, if I was planning my season for next year right now and I was interested in maybe running the 50K championships, like being able to find that, or, knowing well enough in advance what the qualifiers are going to be. They did a way better job this year. And like, I think part of why there was enough time to have a response to, Gorge being announced was they announced it enough in advance so that people could plan around it. But the website to actually find information, have that information be up to date. And I think there's some uncertainty of like what is happening on the USATF side, like kind of the behind the scenes. If Finn wants Twisted Fork to be you guys have a 50K, right? Or 40?
Dude, we'll raise you 10K. We got a 60K.
60K. All right. So like 64 wants the 60K, 64 course to be like, a qualifier. Like what's happening in that back end, like back room, for him to be able to, propose that and get consideration. Like, should it be something that ATRA is like reaching out and surveying of like, hey, like these are the races that are being considered. What is the like participant weigh in here? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I think this is a good place to insert this news. So Matt Walsh, I think is his name. He writes the Trail Mix Substack, and he talks a lot about the business of sport, trends, stuff like that. His latest post, which came out at the end of September, was sort of talking about the politics of this event. And he makes the case, or he suggests this through sort of a line of questioning. He suggests that one of the motivating reasons why the Trail Championships were consolidated into the current format that we see now is because World Athletics and then ITRA, IAU, WMRA, basically over the last 10 years, they saw UTMB and Golden Trail basically consolidating attention, consolidating legitimacy. And this was one of their best levers to pull to claw some of that back. And I find that very interesting. Obviously, Jeff, you and I were talking offline before this, that there's many reasons probably why the format exists the way it does now. And there were people outside of that system who were calling for change, and it happened. But I thought that that was a really interesting line of questioning. It makes sense when we talk about the scheduling conflicts that exist in our sport. If it is about power and relevance primarily, why compromise? And currently, we're not really seeing compromise. We're seeing these things basically stuck right next to each other. The one that's happening in 2027 is, again, also in somewhat of a problematic time of year. So,
yeah, I think I think there's probably truth to that. UTMB seeing these different events and having teams to be able to show up and race, number of runners race in different events is great. I kind of see like UTMB as the brand expose and Worlds as like the national expose, and like maybe the best runners from brands are showing up and racing UTMB. And if you're more interested in representing your country and being the best runner from your country, you're showing up and racing Worlds. I think last year's winner and was Baptiste second or third last year in UTMB, but like Vincent and Baptiste both raced for France's long team this year. Like the returning UTMB champ and a podium finisher. Like I think there's a lot to be said about that. The fact that Jim selected to race OCC, and thank goodness he did, because one of the best things about Worlds and UTMBs being so close together was the OCC races at UTMB this year were like on fire. And so cool to see. I think the top 10 men from OCC all raced in one race or another at Worlds. So like that ended up being a benefit of these being so close together. I mean, they used to happen on opposite years and like kind of all over the world. I think in terms of making it feel like a true national, like showing for a team and a global event, having them together does make a ton of sense, and cool to see like the US send 40, 50 athletes this year to Worlds. And like the pipeline for the junior races is also, I think, something I want to keep my eyes on and see what runners are actually coming up through the ranks there. I'm a huge Worlds fan. I think I've said that enough, but I think first week of October is when the 2027 Worlds will be. So you'll have a little bit more time. It'll be like a maybe 6 week or so gap between UTMB and Worlds. Also interesting, like I wonder what that conversation's like with Stu and the team at Ultra Trail Cape Town, because then it's getting all of these runners to come down to Cape Town effectively like 6 weeks before Ultra Trail Cape Town. And is he tied in with that, or is that impacting his event in a big way? I'm pro like World Athletics and ITRA and World Mountain Running Association. So in general, like, good on them.
This is interesting. So again, talking with some of the athletes out there, they were comparing the experience in Canfranc to the Thailand event 4 years ago, Innsbruck 2 years ago. And they were talking about how relatively remote this one was, and how coming to this resort town, basically the only people there were the runners themselves. Whereas in previous years, there'd been much more interfacing between the local communities and the event. And that this time around, it was non-existent. And so, yeah, I think your point about Cape Town is interesting, because Ultra Trail Cape Town is already this fantastic marquee event. That competition there is tough. But on the flip side, what a cool place that's already kind of thriving and bumping that time of year to host. And it makes me wonder, I guess this is like a classic Long Run Archives question, and it's too far up, but for 2029, Where does it go? What are the chances the UK gets or the US gets a bid? And where would you put it in the US if you could?
This is influenced by something I learned today, but I'd probably put it on the Olympic Peninsula outside of Seattle.
Turns out that's the spot.
Talk about this.
I mean, so cool that you got to remind me of the Beast.
Oh, Beast of the Big, I think it's Beast of the Big Creek. Matthias puts it on.
Yeah. Matthias's race, like that's a proper like VK. It just seems like you have a potential for a short course. You have a potential for a 2-loop long course. You've got your VK and you've got your up down. And like, what a cool zone to be able to do that outside of Seattle. I know the obvious answer you were looking for here, Finn, was Salt Lake or Park City.
No, not at all.
But like,
not at all.
I think that Olympic Peninsula would be really cool. And it looks rugged. It looks like I saw that race, kind of come across my radar today, and I was like, I want to put that on my list. I want to go there.
Yeah, and it's not super high up either. I guess that's one of the problems with most of the US spots is it's like, oh yeah, but you're at 10,000 feet now, whereas like this was pretty close to the ocean.
Yeah, and I mean, it also could be an interesting place to explore. Not that it's that far from where Gorge was, but like an interesting place to explore for qualifiers and stuff. I think for North America, like the Whistler area or Squamish area would also be really cool and make sense. And I do think that major subduction zone along the northern Pacific coast creates some really, really cool running terrain. Right now, I'm hot to trot in the Olympic Peninsula.
The Ring of Fire.
I had one more note for this year's Worlds.
Please, I've got a couple too.
Okay, so I didn't get to watch like wire to wire every single race, but I got to do like a pretty good like skimming of pretty much all of them. The coverage was beautiful, but I felt like two things. One, there was some pretty large gaps in action for like coverage where it was like, maybe it just seemed like lack of personnel for, having like pretty active like follow cams or drones on the runners. Like we'd see it for a while and it was like, this is amazing. But then it'd be like, we're going to cut to like a super long commercial break and interviews and have like one steady cam of like watching all the runners go up one switchback for entirely too long. So I would have loved to see just like a little bit more active coverage. And then the other one was, it really felt like the coverage was not set up for success with the women's races. Like it seemed like it was still pretty male heavy in terms of what I was watching. And then the women's, it was like the men are doing this. And now there's like a little break. We're going to flip over to the women's race. Like those were kind of the vibes that I got for most of it.
And my question there is, we've already seen this be a problem multiple times on the biggest stage live streams. And it always seems like in the wake of it, enough important people feel like it's something worth fixing. And so my question is, why wasn't it fixed? Or why wasn't that anticipated for this live stream? Especially
I don't know anything about the live stream company that put this on or the personnel or what kind of planning, that they've put into like who is going to be where at this time. Do we have these people there? I mean, I've seen like the Mountain Outpost spreadsheets that continue to improve year after year on races that they've done like multi-year live streams for, where like, I could see like the 2023 and the 2024 and the 2025 spreadsheets and how they get tweaked to be a little bit more accurate for like historical split data, making sure we have like additional people here at this spot. Like we can now like dual screen these. So, I mean, I guess it's hard to predict for like a brand new course, like where people are going to be, but you'd think that there would have at least been like a little bit better windows to like just make sure they have people available. And it just seemed like they didn't quite have enough people for some of the race coverage.
So I'm going to push back a little bit. Brad, I'm going to call you a little greedy. I paid attention to a lot of the live stream. I think there was pretty good gender coverage in the up race. I didn't actually watch the up down at all. I was impressed with the number of running cameras they had out there on all of the races I watched. So the short, the long, and the up. I was impressed with the number of bike cams they had out there. And I was also incredibly impressed with the announcers. I think Martin was in studio. I don't know the bloke who was out doing coverage.
I did like that guy.
Coverage in the aid stations and stuff, but I'm pretty sure he spoke 3 or 4 languages. Maybe he was from Hong Kong. He was incredibly knowledgeable about the runners and just like a really cheery fellow. The thoughts on the women's coverage, I agree with you. Like it did fall short on the longer races. And I just want to like throw this out there. Maybe I'm being devil's advocate. Tove Alexanderson and Katie Schide won by a lot. And they were in the mix with the men's race. So whenever Katie was on camera, they were also giving attention to 15th through 20th men or whatever. And like, that's neither here nor there, but do you I guess I wonder if there hadn't been a clear leader out front by so much in the women's races, would that coverage have been more balanced? I'm actually inclined to say no, it wouldn't have been. But it was an element that was like constantly at play. Every time Katie was on camera, it was like who Katie is currently running with. And every time Tove was on camera, it was like, you know, the name would be mentioned of who Tove, was running with.
Didn't they, in one of the events though, didn't they not finish out coverage of the women's top 10?
I think it was the long trail.
Yeah.
They didn't, they cut it before 10th came in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see both sides, but
yeah. I think I was impressed with, I didn't know what to expect for the coverage. And
it was the best of any World's Championships. Like, for sure.
The amount of mountain bikes and like runners out there really running with cameras in front, like, cause we were seeing drone shots of like a guy running with a pretty big, not like a little gimbal, like pretty big camera over this technical footage, trying to stay in front of Remy. And like, that's hilarious to me. So that was like, I was pleasantly surprised, but I was bummed to see the coverage get cut short in the long race.
Okay, I've got a few more things before we switch topics. First off, brand support. So from what I understand, the level of USATF support for the American teams was about the same as usual. But from what I also understand, one of the new things this year was Nike was just giving away a bunch of miscellaneous additional kit to all athletes involved. So like on social, I saw Anna Gibson wearing the Airflow shirt. That's pretty cool.
I think
they were just like
Eli was wearing it. I think Seth wore it.
Yeah,
there was a lot of. Okay, here's a question, and I don't know the answer to this. I might have to do some digging across Instagram. Did any other country have access to Radical Airflow?
I don't know.
Or is this like
no other country was wearing it? Yeah.
So is this like an insider, a classic USA Nike collab?
I don't think it helped anyone for what it's worth, but
no, I agree with that. But like,
cool.
if it did though, it would have been like a huge advantage to Team USA.
Those USA Airflow shirts were sick. I think those will
sell for a lot of money.
Value.
Yeah. If anyone here is listening and has a few extras, reach out and I will get you connected with the people that will be able to get you top dollar for Team USA Radical Airflow. I know, Jeff, we both know the right page to go to.
The another location crossed my mind, and I actually had this thought.
Your first one was amazing, by the way. That's a deep cut.
I think it would be a great spot. Another one is the Catalina Island, like the Catalina wine mixer. Have either of you ever been out there?
No, I don't have a helicopter.
Yeah, get on the ferry. It's a public ferry. It's actually not that expensive. Before 2023 Western States, I did like a little training camp out on Catalina Island. Super hilly. It's incredibly beautiful. There are bison, which is cool. And it's really freaking steep. And like, it's technical in the way that like really steep roads that aren't maintained become enormous ruts and are kind of dangerous technical. But like, you can't run up or down like safely, right? Like you're going to fall running down if you try to like really hammer, and running up, you're either on all fours or you're power hiking. Catalina Island is a sweet, sweet location. And it's like right outside of LA. There used to be like a casino. I'm forgetting, there's Avalon, and then there's another city like, or town at the other end. But there was like it was a popular casino back in like the 30s or 20s, 30s. And like, I think there's enough like housing there for everyone to stay on island. It would be a super cool venue. And I know there is a Catalina Island like ultra. I think it's maybe a 50K. But something like I looked into for a while was the like Trans Catalina FKT. Seems like a super cool FKT because, again, you like ferry out, you run to the other side of the island, and then you just hop on the other ferry. But
that is sick. That's a good one.
It is really like it's quite steep, surprisingly so. And once again, Ring of Fire. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, Ring of Fire. Stay inside. That's the tagline. Stay inside.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a good one to throw in there, and that becomes like a total like destination race too, with just like flying to LA, and then
you have this huge population right there.
Yeah,
isn't there a national park out there?
It's not. It's all private. It's all Catalina Island Foundation or something.
That's why they were able to have the wine mixer out there.
That's also why they have the bison. Because if it was a national park or national forest, they'd be like, yo, these bison are an invasive species. We got to axe these guys.
I'm thinking of Channel Islands National Park. Sorry.
Yeah. But check out Catalina Island. Super cool. Really cool little like running camp destination. Tried to convince folks to do a little running camp there with me. But would be a cool venue for a big race.
Dude, I haven't been this excited since keto was proposed on this podcast. Okay. So
keto Ecuador, not like ketosis.
No, I mean keto.
Yeah. No, the keto diet.
Keto. Like, when did you ever get excited about not eating carbs?
No, and we speculated that Katie and Germain might go down to keto before Hard Rock.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What ideas come to your mind? Because I actually think this is a pretty cool thought experiment. Like in the U.S., you need the uphill, you need the up down, you need a 25-mile and a 50-mile course. And I think it's fair to say that they can't be at altitude. I don't think Silverton works.
Mm-hmm. I think that this is an amazing query for ChatGPT. Like, put all those stipulations in there, reference the two examples that you just made as like really interesting, non-obvious outlier options. And I bet it would spit out some cool stuff in like New Mexico or like outside of El Paso and those like Franklin Mountains,
Franklin Mountains are tough.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to throw out there, because I would be remiss not to mention it. It's a little bit of hearsay. It's a little bit of rumor, but it was circulating on social media. Jim Walmsley patching up the USA symbol on his sleeve. We're no strangers to talking about patches on this podcast. Was he or was he not making a political statement? Was he or was he not demonstrating his level of national pride? I don't know, but I find that very interesting. And it didn't seem like it came with, again, if it was the case that it was all being blocked, it didn't come with any repercussions that I'm aware of. So,
a lot of these, pretty subtle.
It was pretty subtle, but also like
you had to be paying attention and like look at pictures, and like the alibi there would be like, oh, clearly we're just trying to make the shirts fit more Euro, because that's what the byproduct. Like, it wasn't just a patch over. Like maybe it was like, oh, it is a patch over the USA, but it was also tightening up the shoulders, tightening up the sleeves, because the fit was like very different if you looked at like him versus some of these others. I'm just playing devil's advocate. It's like, what's your alibi here?
Of course.
Well, I mean, this is the question. Like, if you're going to do that as a political statement, are you not also going to make a statement to go with it? Like, I don't know.
I know.
Like, do you think that alone is like, hey, this is my political statement, whatever it is? Like, or like, do you think it's like, oh, well, maybe Jim patched up his USA on his sleeve and he's hoping that Finn on Singletrack is going to call him out, and then he can come out with this big grandiose statement about his political beliefs in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's no sticker on a bike fork, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. The like making the shirt more Euro. I saw the photo. Like, it definitely does look like a patch over USA, and other runners have that USA on their right sleeve. But I also can imagine that like shirts just fit him differently. I would put myself as more of an average shaped individual. He's like 6'1", 6'2", and maybe like $140. He's a lanky guy. That much torso and
you don't want floppy sleeves over there. I mean, that could be the difference between winning by what did Jim win by?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. That could be the difference between Jim winning by 10 minutes versus Jim winning by 5 minutes.
Yeah, it is.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. Like, I'm not opposed to altering clothes to make them fit better. I've definitely done it, like with running clothes. But it seems like a clear patch over the USA.
Yeah, which I think we'd have to phone Skylar Hall on this one, but I'm pretty sure there are rules against doing that.
I can tell you those rules. Like, you receive the Nike kit, and it's very, very obvious. And like the best example that maybe comes to mind, because I like basketball and Finn likes basketball, hopefully everyone else likes basketball too, is like, Michael Jordan using the American flag to cover up. At that point in time, the sponsor was not Nike, and it was like
draping or something.
Yeah, draping the American flag over his USA kit, so like it didn't show the Adidas. But like it basically says like the instructions are you actually can't cover up any of the Nike symbols. So
Nike doesn't care about America. They're just like, don't cover up our flag.
Like you're not supposed to alter them. I think altering to fit is like an interesting gray zone there, but you're not supposed to alter the clothes. There are certain ways you're supposed to wear it. Like when you receive that team kit in the suitcase, it's coming with like a Gatorade bottle and 10 orange Gatorade, powder pouches and your little Gatorade towel. And like, it's like pretty like, what you'd imagine the corporate sponsors of American sports are. You're getting Gatorade and Nike, and everything is like, hey, this is how you're going to show this. This is how you're going to display it. Like in Chiang Mai, we were not allowed to wear the warm-up uniforms on the podium. You had to wear the podium uniform. And so like before leaving, no one wants to bring the 75 articles that they got with them to Worlds. Like before leaving, it was very clear instruction. Like everyone must bring the podium uniform with you to Worlds. Like if you are on podium, this is the look. And you think about like opening ceremonies for the Olympics and the USA's partnership with, is it Tommy Hilfiger typically? Like, yeah, everyone in the same uniform looks super cool. I think there's like a national, like unity element to it. So I think the guidelines are there for that purpose of like, these are the items you are supposed to wear. These are how you're supposed to wear them. It definitely isn't telling you like Nike bought this placement. You are not allowed to cover up the Nike.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
One of the open questions I have over the next few years, doesn't have to go answered. I'm going to put it out there. How many, if any, athletes will we see from the American contingent for 27 and beyond will publicly boycott joining this team for whatever reason, or use this platform to make statements?
I'm going to set the betting at over or under 0.
I mean, I guess it depends on like the political state in some way, but like I think to pivot to what Francesco Pupi did at the finish line, like he brandished a Palestinian flag like right when he crossed the finish line, and like, hey, that's a political statement.
That's a very political statement.
He showed up for his country. He ran for Italy. They ended up doing quite well. They had a super strong team, and instead of grabbing the Italian flag, he grabbed the Palestinian flag. Like, there's as much opportunity to make a statement.
I'm glad you brought that one up too.
Is by boycotting, showing up to that. I think the thought for me is like, less like how many folks, 2027 and beyond will make some political statement. I thought Caleb Olson in a piece he wrote for the Pro Trail Runners Tribune, like did a great job of like, are runners going to advocate to the Team USA that they want to be able to have their brand pay for a sponsorship spot on their uniform as well? Or like, where does that brand loyalty tie in with national loyalty? And that's like, it's interesting. At the end of the day, brand sponsors, shoe companies are like paying salary, you know, and that's like, that does buy brand loyalty, right? Like that's, you know, if you're all in on that brand, the thought of wearing, you know, it's like primary competitor, maybe that actually is swaying some people.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought up the Francesco example with the Palestinian flag. Yeah, because I think that probably gets just because he's obviously not on the American team, maybe that gets a little bit less play in the media. But again, equally interesting, compelling, controversial for sure. Yeah,
I would question like how much American athletes are like interested in being, you know, politically vocal right now based on the administration. But like we saw the Vuelta, like Vuelta de España, like the biggest bike race in Spain, you know, the Giro, the Tour de France, and the Vuelta are the three big tours or classics. The Vuelta was just canceled. You know, the final day was just canceled because of protests over Palestine. And stages were cut short, you know, and I think the Spanish government was kind of like, yeah, this is messed up. Sorry that your bike race is being impacted by what's going on. So I'm not surprised we saw more runners on the international stage kind of making a statement. But would be curious if Jim was making a statement, what that was.
Conversation to be continued for sure. Let's pivot over to the Mammoth 200. I've got a lot of things to talk about here. Maybe I'll lead us off. I think one of the big storylines here for me is just the battle that ensued between Jimmy Elam and Rachel Entrekin. Basically from start to finish, there was that pack there with, I think Tara was in it for some extent. Max Jolliffe was there for a bit, but it really became like Jimmy versus Tara or Jimmy versus Rachel. And it was crazy to watch. I've got a couple stats here because I did talk with Jimmy briefly after the fact. He estimates that they ran the first 100 miles of that race. Jimmy ran it in about 17:50 and Rachel ran it low 18. And again, it is a runnable course, but you're factoring in, this is the first, less than the first half of a 100 miler. You're climbing 15,000 feet in those 100 miles. You're at altitude. And yeah, they've still got 117 miles left after ripping a 17:50 and low 18. And Jimmy's like, yeah, man, like you're going to see this evolve over the next few years. But I think we're already seeing that you have to race these 200s legitimately. Like it's not a hiking fest. You have to race them like hundreds. And he said that basically he was a little bit faster on the running sections than Tara, but she kept it close, because she's a crazy, tough competitor. And I think she had more experience at transitions. So she was just getting in and out of aids so much faster than him and kept him on his toes the whole way. So I just wanted to put that out there first. That was just those type of numbers that they're putting up, especially in an inaugural year to where you're kind of figuring out the course and stuff, just insane.
Yeah, they ended up, I feel like, you know, the Jimmy trying to stay away from Rachel and Rachel trying to chase Jimmy down, like both of them benefited from each other to run what it feels like a really absurd time. I guess we'll, in a few years, we'll really know like how good this time was. But it's like, to your point, like to see these splits of like sub 18 hour first 100 miles. Like Jimmy, you know, I went to bed, he had like 40 miles left and I was like, oh, you still have the biggest climb, blah, blah, blah. I will wake up. I will see your finish. I woke up. He had been finished for 3 hours. And I was like, seriously, dude? Like you couldn't just walk it in a little bit to like get there when it's light out, but instead we have to do another middle of the night finish because you ended up going so fast. But yeah, I do love the battle that ended up happening between those two. It was really cool to see.
I think to your point, Finn, I know he was a little bit behind Rachel, but Eder Ramirez like didn't do that,
right?
And ran incredibly well for third place.
Eder's legit. And that's his style too. He's
pacing really well.
He looked the best at the finish. He looked incredible at the finish. Like when you come in, into the village and you like go up and over this bridge, he was taking the stairs up and down 2 at a time. So
for what it's worth, I mean, Rachel looked really good at the finish too. Jimmy
Rachel
also
looked very
looked
good at the finish.
pretty fresh at the finish.
But Eder was taking the stairs 2 at a time.
I think the other thing that I don't know if surprise is the right word, but it was just an interesting awakening for Jimmy was how earlier this summer he absolutely murdered the course record at Cascade Crest. Like an insane, like took down a really strong, in my opinion, Tyler Green course record and took it down by quite a bit. And it was sort of like crickets after that because Cascade Crest is, one of those more, I'd say, old school races. It's obviously a part of the culture of the sport, but like, it's not Western States, it's not Hard Rock, stuff like that. And then he comes to Mammoth, an inaugural event, and you're just showered in attention. Like there's the storytelling going on social, there's the live stream. Even in the wake of this thing, he's just been blown away. And it's a race that's just in year one. So I think he wanted to throw out just like massive credit to Tim Tollefson, Hillary Yang, the Mountain Outpost team, Jamil. Like it's amazing what media can do.
I think it's so interesting with a 200-mile distance too that they can edit reels and stuff like they can edit YouTube shorts or like 4 or 5 minute videos and
the chronicles.
Chronicles, like get them out while the race is still going on.
Yeah, I think that part of the race is, or like just the elements is super cool. Apologies, it sounds like it's just like I'm brushing my teeth in the background, but getting some work done on the house. They're the kind of the new age race, with the Mammoth, like you said, like kind of the difference between like Jimmy winning Cascade Crest and winning the Mammoth. It's like they had like the social media equation like all ready to go before the race started. Like they had a plan where like we're like Noah is going to come out and he's going to be all over the course filming reels for Mountain Outposts. Like the Mammoth is going to be like posting this stuff here and here. We're going to have the Mammoth Chronicles. And I think there was 10 episodes, maybe even more by the time the race finished. It's like when you have that much circulating for multiple days and on social media, and it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's Mountain Outpost or something, but like it's almost like they've figured out the Instagram algorithm for 200-mile races to like put out the correct amount of content to get stuff to catch. Because like
I gotta think some of it's just the fact that it's a 200-mile race.
Yeah,
people like see that and they're like, what?
But like people were engaging with it too. Like you're getting the continuous engagement and everything, and like the right collabs and X, Y, and Z. But they did a really good job. I mean, I would say this was a very successful year one. The only question that I had that I wanted to throw out your way was this is Mammoth at this point in September too late in the season? Because they did have to like alter the course for the back of the pack on it was either the last day or the second last day where they couldn't summit the final climb because they got like a foot of snow up there. Is that just a dice roll every year, or should they maybe like try and make this race like before Mammoth Trail Fest and maybe have people finishing like during Mammoth Trail Fest instead of the opposite?
That's a cool concept to have like the race start a couple days before, and
like a PTL.
I think it just comes down to like personnel and can they actually produce the product they want to produce for the Mammoth and also have the product they want to produce for the Trail Fest. That's just a lot of hands on deck. In terms of the snow, I'm happy they did alter the course. I think like going back to that tragic race in China where over 20 people died, with like a cold weather system moving in, like taking that kind of situation seriously and not putting runners at risk, especially runners who are maybe in like a 3-day delirium, I think was a really good call. So kudos to Tim and the Mammoth staff for making that decision and rerouting.
100%.
But yeah, maybe it might be a year-to-year thing. Like there's years where Halloween is like the first really big snow. So
yeah, I wasn't sure if it would just be like maybe one of those things where it's just a bit of a dice roll every year, but it made for some really cool pictures. on the
I'd
last day.
personally love to see it happen in concert with Mammoth Trail Fest and things just starting and finishing, maybe bookending the event. I think that could be really cool. But I also understand there's probably volunteer capacities and stuff to deal with and aid stations and stuff like that. And the overlap is tough. Jimmy seems to think that as this evolves over the years, Cocodona is going to become sort of the Western States of 200s and Mammoth is going to become the Hard Rock, at least in the sense that they bookend the seasons. And I think they're spaced out far enough where if you are a 200-mile specialist, maybe you build your season around those two. I know if things had worked out for me this year, in many respects, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have done Cocodona in May. I was supposed to do this race last weekend and super bummed that I couldn't be there and want to be there again as early as next year if I can. But yeah, he was so blown away. I think it's worth mentioning like publicly that I'm going to blank on the exact number, but I think that Mammoth put up over 20 grand in prize money for the two podiums. So Jimmy and Rachel are both walking away with $5,000. And I think, I do believe I think it's the Divide
532.
532. I know the Divide 200 up in Canada also has a similar prize purse, but I know on the American scene, Mammoth is now like in a leadership role among 200s, which is super cool. And I hope that puts pressure on the rest of the industry to kind of follow suit. It's great leadership.
For what it's worth, they were IOUs. Big IOU for $5,000.
I love those. I love those.
That could end up just being something
Grand
we hear
Slam
about with PTRA of where's my money?
Shroot bucks.
Yeah, we got a Grand Slam situation here. No, I trust the personnel at Mammoth.
Yeah.
One thing I wrote, dude, how good is Rachel Entrekin?
I mean, that's my next talking point.
Like,
I think Rachel Entrekin is just fully ready for Rogan. I think Rachel Entrekin needs to get on Joe Rogan's podcast and get fully just like skyrocketed, because beyond being incredibly dominant in this space, beyond this 200 being her 20th consecutive win or whatnot, she's just incredibly high entertainment value.
Yeah.
And the punchiness that she can be with the on-course cameras, with like the interviews, with her competition. She's like, I think she's now the face of 200s, at least in North America. And, maybe it means going to Tour de Jean and winning TDG, or, doing some of these other international, multi-day races to like really gain that title. But Rachel is so impressive.
She's so good. Like, yeah. And like, kind of like you said too, like anytime like she went by and there was like people on course, like we got to see like social media content, like she looked like good. Like she's just like unflappable at the 200-mile distance, where it was just like, I don't know, like she seemed like so nonchalant, but at the same time, it's like internally like very calculated. Yeah, to just create this like perfect storm of 200-mile athlete. And it's like I'm turning, like if Rachel signed up for a race and there's a live stream, like I'm turning the TV on because I want to see how Rachel does.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I followed Mammoth. Like I'm a big fan of Jimmy's as well. I'm a big fan of Max's. Jeff Pelletier. There were some folks who I was excited about following, but it's like Rachel's the headliner. And interesting, like going back to Cocodona live stream, of just like the number of folks tuned into the Cocodona live stream who like couldn't quite wrap their heads around the fact that, maybe Courtney or Rachel would win that race, like overall. Like I think like at least the like fans of Max Jolliffe like are starting to be like, oh yeah, Rachel's in this race. Like this is gonna be a hard one for Max to win. Rachel is incredibly dominant in these races in this space.
There are many categories to consider at the end of the year, but when we go to do free trails, Troy voting, etc., her 63 mid performance at Cocodona is going to be very high up my ballot for performance of the year. I thought that was just, if you know that course and you see what other elite athletes on the men's side, for example, have done there, not being too far behind Ryan Sands or Dan Green, historically, Jeff Browning, Arling, like that whole group, like that was an amazing performance. Last thing I want to say about Mammoth is just, again, just some more intel that I got from people that were there. And one of the takeaways was just how, like, in terms of differentiation from other events on the scene, how Mammoth does a good job of including some of these towns and hamlets in their loop along the way in the Eastern Sierra, Lee Vinning, June Lake, etc. And, Jimmy mentioned, for example, being on course, he'd get into town and the locals would be like coming out of their houses to cheer on. And I think as this event establishes itself more into the future, he could see that becoming like a bigger thing. So a little taste of Europe there too, where you're going into the mountains, it gets super remote, but then it's kind of linked up by these towns, and there's that social aspect as well. So again, just another piece of the formula that I think could make this thing an instant classic and like a really solid elite spot for 200 milers to go.
Yeah. And kind of, as you said too, like bookending the, like maybe like the 200-mile season. Like I do like how it's possible to have basically like to do Cocodona and Mammoth, hence Rachel blowing the doors off everyone in both. I like that they're far enough apart from each other where, we're not being like, oh, so-and-so did this because they didn't do that. Like, thank you for being able to do both.
I might be a little out of touch here because I've never done a 200-mile race or attended one or crewed one. From my vantage, it still seems like Moab is the bookend of the 200-mile season, and like it still seems like the Moab 240 is a high profile 200 that's coming up in a couple weeks here.
Certainly. Although I do think we're going to see this convergence and then maybe change in position if, well, okay, I'm excited to see this experiment play out where we get a true understanding of how important storytelling and media and all of those social media assets are to the long-term success and prominence of an event. Like, is it the case that because Moab is so classic and so institutional, nothing is going to change about its popularity, its reach, who signs up? Or is Mammoth currently making this really compelling argument that not only are we going to give you a really cool course and experience there, but like we're going to add all these amazing bells and whistles that just amplify it. And for example, from a media standpoint, make it easier for your family and friends to follow along. I don't know the answer to that. And
yeah, that's a great point. Like for every runner, right? I think it'd be interesting to look at the impressions that the Mammoth got across their live feed and their content and like compare that to the impressions that King of Moab got. There's an argument, like if you're a runner out there and you're able to go win Moab and, make a good docu-piece on it, like Max has fully launched a brand around winning that race. And like kudos to him. Like I have nothing but respect for that. But like freaking King of Moab bike bib, like come on. That is super cool. So like I do think,
I mean, was that Moab or was that Max?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Max's like performance at Moab and, the branding of it, like Max is a designer for, I think, Hurley. Like he is definitely a great design brain and marketing brain for sure. But I think getting the personalities to your race is going to be as much of an importance. And like, we see that with Cocodona for sure. Huge personalities at Cocodona this year. But I don't know. I guess I'm not quite ready to say that Mammoth is like the sure thing bookend. Like I'm excited about following along with some runners who are going to Moab next week or coming up in 2 weeks here. And like I think the live stream element is, I guess, what I will face when I go to follow along.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a product to follow along with, I'll be like, all right, well, shucks. Hope you had a great time out there.
See you and talk to you in 5 days.
Time, and that's that. So yeah, you might be right. I mean, the package is a really appealing element to it of like, this is, my whole community can tap into this.
Yeah.
Maybe another follow-up question to that is how much more mileage, figurative mileage, does the Joe Rogan, David Goggins, Cam Hanes stamp of an approval on an event go for? Like, Obviously, it was in their spotlight for about 5 or 6 years, and maybe the back end of that is Max's performance a year or two ago. As things change in the sport, how long can a race ride out that stamp and continue to sell out and continue to be quote unquote more important? I don't know. Again, I'm just excited to see what happens.
I think the races, I think Moab will, pretty much continue to always sell out. But I think at the top end, like from the elite side, if there's not a good way for me to actively follow and stay engaged with the race, then probably, then it's going to be Mammoth. Like, I mean, we had like all the big players at Mammoth, they're not going to be at Moab. So, I mean, I haven't looked at the Moab start list, but I'm like, who's going to be racing there, this year instead. So, but I think, I bet both races will continue to sell out for as long as they exist. But what I'm curious about is like the top end.
You and I are close enough to Moab that we know most of the areas where that course is. It's just truly remarkable. I mean, that's like Canyon Country. Canyon Country is the coolest part of this country. And in my mind, like on most days, I'm like, wow, if I could be transported to like a cool fall day, near Fisher Towers or near the LaSalle's or like out in Indian Creek,
dude,
wherever.
The Henrys. Put a race in the Henrys for me.
Yeah, like it's just so remarkable that I think that course just naturally has that going for it. But yeah, I digress. I don't know, and I don't know if there is any live stream or anything with the Moab 240. So I might be SOL when it comes to trying to follow along.
I also want to know, I should know this because I'm a race director, but I would love to know how expensive these live streams are and what the ROI is. I mean, to me, it seems like us three were talking about Mammoth in large part because we got to see proof of it on YouTube for 4 days straight. And that's incredibly powerful, but I don't know how immediate, I don't know if race directors need immediate benefits or if a live stream is sort of like a play that makes sure that you're selling out, not just in year 1, but year 8. Because people have that
gaining, like, I mean, I think it's super important in terms of you're gaining attention, and it's like long-term attention. Like I go back to High Lonesome. Caleb the last couple of years has made the decision to like put the live stream there, and I think it's because he knows that like long-term for the race, it's the best play. And for the race to continue to grow in importance and grow in relevance, people need to be able to follow along with it and actually experience it. And, Hard Rock got by for a long time off of like, legacy. And 2023 being the first live stream at Hard Rock is just like the switch was flipped. It's like, yeah, this needs to happen. People need to be able to see this without traveling to Ouray to witness it. So I think you're spot on. I mean, I think it might even be an investment that like puts a race, in the red for, okay, I'm going to confess to something. Is it in the red or in the black that I'm trying to say right now?
I think it's in the red.
The black's a good thing.
The black is the good.
Yeah, good.
I just learned what discombobulated means. I just said it, and then you told me the good word.
It's a great word. It sounds so good when
you learned that it means it's a good word.
Discombobulated. Yeah.
I think the other thing too with these live streams is like you could, like, as an RD, like if you have the pitch correctly for the live stream, like you can leverage that as a better brand sponsor reach as well. Like, like Craft was all over my feed this past 2 weeks because of Mammoth Trail Fest and the Mammoth.
You're talking Moab, like you should be getting a Jeep sponsorship outright to underwrite that live stream because Jeeps own Moab.
Exactly.
So I think that's really the play is if you have to front the live stream the first year and then sell it to a brand the next year, like the numbers, how the trend is going, the numbers are going to be there if it's a live stream. And like I had a call earlier this week around that, actually in regard to our last Long Runs archive about like agents and the agentification of the sport. Like folks who at one point in time followed me in a race I was doing and followed that live stream are like, crossing paths being like, hey, I watched some of that like Mammoth live stream. I'm like, who did you know who was running Mammoth? Like, what? Like, well, Rachel won High Lonesome and she was running Mammoth. Like, they're now like, they're tuning in like beyond just, oh, it used to be I'm watching Jeff, and now because there's a live stream, they're throwing it on. And
sports.
Whatever the algorithm is, I guess the algorithm is probably Mountain Outpost. If you've watched the Mountain Outpost live stream, like you open YouTube, if there's one on, you're going to get fed it. So it is super interesting to see that side of the sport like growing so quickly, and like every live stream number that comes out, I'm going to believe it. Like I think you'd have to tell me just something like absolutely ridiculous, like, the Western States live stream was bigger than the Super Bowl for me to be like, well, that sounds like it might be fishy. But, it doesn't surprise me how many folks are tuning in just based on kind of my interactions.
Last thing here before we get into someone's mystery topic. And this is more a reflection on the last 5 years of live streams and not necessarily anything about any of the most recent ones. And I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. I think we're getting to the point where the sport is ready for predictability around commentating teams and people who are basically doing it as close to a full-time profession as possible. And if, for example, they're signed up to do the Cocodona live stream or the High Lonesome one, not only are they doing it, but like they're spending the 3 weeks in advance going out and scouting the course so they can talk about it deeply. They're doing research, like deep research on the fields. I just think the next thing I want to see is a professionalized content commentating sphere. Like basketball fans, Jeff, Doris Burke, Mike Breen, Richard Jefferson. Like I know that they're going to be commenting on NBA Sunday Night ESPN. Baseball, Joe Buck, Tim McCarver from the early 2000s. Like I want the predictability. I don't know if it's Brett and Leah. I don't know if it's Dylan and Corinne or Chris Warden, but I want predictability. I'm ready for that. Because I think the commentators add so much to the experience, and we're making fun of the whole like filling dead time thing right now. But I don't actually think that's a problem. I think it's more just like there's plenty to talk about if you're professional about it and you're prepared.
I love that. I love that take. TNT halftime show is like, one of the main reasons I watch a lot of NBA games is just to watch the halftime show.
Yeah.
Like best case scenario, I turn on a game and it's like 30 seconds before halftime. And then I can watch the TNT halftime show and then watch the second half of the basketball game. Like for me, that's the best use of my time.
Who's our Ernie Johnson?
Yeah. We maybe need a TNT halftime show for the live streams where it's like, hey, we're going to bump from our normal, our normal Corinne and Debo for Western States and, go to these folks with their takes at the, like Forest Hill show or whatever it is. I think I think there's a lot of ways that we can improve dead time on these shows.
This was a Brett idea, and we did it a while back, and I think it was one of the best things we ever did. We did like a UTMB watch party thing. I think it was during like the 2022 or 2023 UTMB, and we kind of went on at like our own random time and just offered some updates on what we had just saw and stuff. And again, I'm not putting us on the pedestal. I'm just saying that having different teams come in or breaks in the action or just pre-planning out the professional side of it is not a bad idea.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was great. I had a blast, dude. Like, yeah, that was great. Brett, you want to do a mystery topic? I know we have like probably 25 minutes left. Do you want to do a mystery topic?
Yeah, I got one. So there was just a race announcement that I thought was interesting. So every year, or at least for the last few years, in April, they have the Lake Sonoma 50 mile. They also do a marathon that just loops around the lake. And then in October, they've had the Lake Sonoma, the Fall Classic, which is the 100K that they put on. And I think maybe 100 mile, but they, the 100K late season Western States qualifier. For 2026, they just announced they're flip-flopping those races. So there's now the 100K and 50K in April, and the 50 mile and 100 mile are in October. Wow. Now, that immediately had me throwing my tinfoil hat on and being like, all right, Lake Sonoma 100K what is that? What is the extra, handful of miles make them eligible for? It's like Western States qualifier could be kind of competitive. Maybe throw something shiny in there. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting flip flop and kind of cool.
I was talking with Corinne about the Fall Classic, and she shared with me who the race director of that is now, and it's escaping me.
Is it not Skip Brand?
Maybe it's Skip, but it
Keeltsburg
does sound like
company.
that Fall Classic race has had a bit of an identity crisis over the last decade, and it's kind of changed, and the times changed, and they've been trying to shuffle it around to figure out the right formula for Lake Sonoma 50 and the Fall Classic. I kind of thought it was cool when Lake Sonoma 50 was a golden ticket race.
Oh yeah, that was perhaps my favorite one.
Ripping fast, death by 10,000 cuts, and I know it didn't necessarily work out, the best for. Actually, I mean, Drew Holman won that, I think, and got 6th at Worlds and whatnot in Innsbruck. So I don't think it was necessarily it was bad, but I think there was some critique around Lake Sonoma being a Worlds qualifier. I've always wanted to go do that race, and I was actually thinking about doing the Fall Classic. It doesn't really check any box that I need to check, so it would really just be racing for the kind of sake of racing. And it's well, is that the right move right now? But definitely interesting to hear. I wonder what the strategy was there, and long term, if this is going to stabilize, and the identity of Lake Sonoma is going to kind of feel rooted in its importance, because for a decade it was super important.
Yep, 100%. And Lake Sonoma 50 mile got the golden ticket boot because they were no, it's got to be 100K or longer. It's well, what are they now? They're 100K. Let's do it. Finn, what do you think? You got your tinfoil hat on right now. I can see it.
Well, like any good mystery topic, you spurred many ideas in my head. And one that I will share here is, first of all, I'm going to preface this. Topher Gaylord, Dylan Bowman, Craig Thornley, highly competent, respected people. I'm glad that they're in the position that they're in to determine the fate of the Golden Ticket Series. That 1 second.
Excuse you.
Sorry, my mom just called. She wanted to FaceTime with Sloan. Anyways, like any just good ideation session, I think there are opportunities here with this Lake Sonoma idea to make golden ticket selection more interesting. Why don't we have race director debates in sort of a campaign season where there's primaries and a general election for choosing the following year's stuff? And, you got your incumbents, you've got your challengers, but anyone that wants to put their race up for golden ticket consideration in the following year, I think that they should run a concerted campaign effort, and there should be debates, and you should be pitching yourself on podcasts. Maybe, again, I don't know, if Caleb Efta wanted to, for whatever reason, put High Lonesome on the golden ticket circuit, he could come join us on a Longer in Archives and pitch it for 15 minutes. And then we, again, equal airtime. So if someone from Canyons wants to come on to talk, great, they do it. We do a whole episode where we just hear pitches like it's Shark Tank,
Dude,
us three just Shark Tank, but for golden ticket races.
Finn, you would be so good at hosting that and moderating RD debates on why their golden ticket race is better than the other person's. Oh,
so thank you. I love it. I don't necessarily agree with golden ticket races should be longer than 100K, and I still think JFK would be a sick golden ticket race. And I look at the winners of JFK, and it's they've done pretty well at Western States. So I think this whole it needs to be 100K or longer is somewhat rooted in I do think that Hard Rock qualifiers are there for a reason, and you need to prove that you could potentially finish Hard Rock.
Yeah,
I actually don't think Western States has that problem. And Western States, if you've never run longer than 50 miles, I think it would be pretty hard. And I think if we looked at the success of Lake Sonoma winners at Western States, maybe there's a trend there, and maybe these really respectable folks you just listed, Finn, have actually looked at that and saw a trend there. But I remember, I think Casey Lichtig winning at Canyon or at Lake Sonoma. Um,
I mean, Jim's the course record holder. Jared Hazen has one of the top times. I think
Yeah,
Senseman
like,
got a golden ticket there.
it's always interesting to like kind of parse that out. I love the idea of and this is kind of what I was getting at before with Worlds too, of like, just let us in the back door. You know what? Like, make it more public of, hey, you want to know why all these races are golden tickets? Because Hoka is paying us. And like, you know,
Yeah.
and UTMB is paying us. If that's it, okay.
Yeah.
Other race directors will step down. But like, for the qualifier for Worlds, what I was saying before is like get some public input, get some race director input, like have a discussion, try to actually promote involvement in that. So I'm keen. I think whether it's golden tickets or qualifiers for Worlds, like, I'm not gonna, you know, stir the pot with hard rock qualifiers, although it would be sweet if there were more in the spring or winter. But
Or in the Northeast, Jigger Johnson.
yeah.
But
The
anyways,
one thing
that-
I was
yeah, go ahead.
the one thing I was thinking too with like a Lake Sonoma 100K, if it was a golden ticket race, my take is that the added 12 miles like doesn't make the race much slower in like today's just racing landscape. I bet we see damn near close to like Lake Sonoma 50-mile splits. Just add 12 more miles of who's going to be able to handle it.
They're running the same pace for sure. But
yeah,
I thought you were saying that the times would be the same. I was like,
no. We're not running.
Very good when he ran that.
We're not running a sub 6 hour Lake Sonoma 100K.
Yeah. No, but I think you're spot on. I think the pace would be pretty much the same. It's like, that is the definition California carpet, right?
Yeah, like it would still be ripping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was an interesting announcement.
Great one.
Good speculation. So that's my contribution to to the Long Run archives.
The timing of that is also in April, right?
Yeah, it's like favorable for golden tickets.
Is it the same weekend as Canyons?
Historically, it had always been like 1 or 2 weeks before.
I just want Canyons to go away. I'll say it. I don't think Canyons is like the most exciting golden ticket race, and it seems like a lot of people get Poison Oak there. And I think
awful.
Canyons I think a race on the Western States course in the fall would be super cool. Like, maybe Canyon should flip flop and go to the fall.
They should be the October race.
Yeah.
I would love to see Miwok 100K come back into the fold in some cool way.
That would be, that would just be so cool because of its location, the history and location of it. Like that. Yeah. I think Dave still has the course record at Miwok 100K. I want to say.
I thought Cody got
Mackie.
I thought
Dave Mackey has it.
Oh, he still has it? Okay.
Maybe not.
I don't remember.
I remember him riding incredibly fast there and being like, wow, that would be super cool to go and try to test myself against like that time.
Yeah. And like the top 10 is like it's like a who's who of Hall of Famers, which that's always a cool thing to, and for like a relatively unchanged course as well. It's like, you can go race some ghosts and see where you stack up.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, Brett, that was great. Great ideation. That made me think a lot about a lot of different things. So that was a good contribution.
I don't have so much as of a mystery topic. My mystery topic, the line was just literally Rachel Entrekin is ready for Joe Rogan. So that was the topic. We covered it.
You gave us a great clip.
Yeah, I think that's like, that's her status, and she's in this place where like I think she's up there with the most entertaining athletes in our sport, and she's just on a winning streak right now. Like, her hand is hot.
It's the 3 years old, this winning streak.
It's crazy.
Like,
yeah.
She would be a good Long Run Archives guest, I think.
Yeah,
that would be a fun one.
Yeah, we could ping her in right now and then be on this for another couple hours. The Between Two Pines, I think that you shared, Finn, with Rachel and Jimmy, was super funny, and I think it's like this is some of the just best banter, nonsense banter that I've like heard in a while in trail running, and made me really appreciate those two.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Finn, what do you got?
Well, I kind of shared both mine, just the foray into pedestrianism and just sort of like
that's right.
the fate of the race directing world, at least for the next few weeks, due to the government shutdown. I'll share so I've been reading a lot lately, and so I'll share this is sort of like the best stuff that I found on or off the internet in the past few weeks. I'm going to show 2 books, and then I'll go in depth on one of them. First book I read was called Bad Blood, which is this really cool investigation into Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos, and just the fact that she's basically a sociopath. And a lot of smart people were deceived by her and her vision. And she was basically selling this black box that had been taped together, claiming that it could get like every single possible blood sample for every single medical condition out there, and that was going to revolutionize things. So just this like really interesting book that delves into like the culture of Silicon Valley and wanting to just like believe that things are anyways, I'm not going to ruin it. Great book, great writing. Next one is called The Attention Merchants, which traces back the nature of like advertising and the attention industry all the way back to like the mid 18th or the mid 19th century, with newspapers changing their business models from like just purchasing a paper to like having companies subscribe or advertise in them. But the best one that I've read recently is called Into the Silence by Wade Davis. And it's basically an early history of the first attempts to summit Mount Everest. And it goes into the minds of like George Mallory and all the guys that were part of the Royal Geographic Society in the UK. I love it because it like really goes into the background of like culturally what was happening in the UK at that time. These guys were coming off like one of the craziest, bloodiest, most traumatic World War I's, like in the trenches and stuff. And what they saw there was insane. British colonialism was at its height. And so like literally that for the British, that whole section of like Tibet that hadn't even been mapped yet, they were trying to figure out what was even there and then establishing relations. And there was like a 20-year delay in even being able to get onto the mountain to start climbing. So like, I think a lot of these books about our world they're rooted in like the physicality of it and like the survival stories of like, did you make it and stuff. And I love how this one like gives you the history of what was going on in the culture. It was like asking a goldfish what water is, you know. They were just like, they breathed collectivism, while I think our society is breathing more like individualism and more like critique of nation states and stuff. So fantastic book. It's a little dense, but I've loved it.
That's super cool. My freshman year seminar class in college was all about, it was called Exploring Wilderness Writing, but it was just strictly about the history of mountaineering. And like from Edward Whymper and Scramble Amongst the Alps to like the early summit attempts on Everest. So that whole topic of reading is a fascinating one.
It's a great book. We'll put it in the show notes if I can remember. Great read.
I have 2.
Okay.
One is that Hard Rock Lottery is open today. So happy Hard Rock Lottery Day.
Are you making a pitch right now? Like what's going on?
May the odds be ever in your favor.
It's like, no, nothing at all. Just wanted to let everyone know.
Just letting people know I'm drinking from my Hard Rock, pint glass.
Really nice cup.
Yeah,
really nice.
Really nice cup. The other I thought you might bring up, Finn, but Raid, who
Research.
Raid Research, who makes ski packs and hip belts for running, just launched their Ultralight One and their Trail Tech Short, and I think these are like worth checking out. I watched like the walkthrough that Kyle did on their website of the Trail Tech system, and basically it's like we again are trying to like make movement as freeing as possible. So if we're not looking at a running pack, how much can you carry between a short and a waist belt? How much can you carry between a short and their LF2 or a short and their Ultralight One? And a couple things that stood out to me as like really interesting that Kyle did with these designs. The shorts have pockets basically that go like down your hip. Like imagine some folks, some shorts have that like phone pocket that's integrated into the like, sub short.
Mm-hmm.
The actual soft flasks tuck in there. And so the idea is like the short is fully accessible. All the pockets on the short are fully accessible while wearing a belt. So you can stack them on top of each other and carry kind of the amount you want with just the short or with the new Ultralight 1 belt, or with the LF2 belt. And like really impressive seeing that breakdown. I also love that he's introducing different soft flask sizes. And this isn't like crazy new, but it is pretty interesting that like, pretty much everyone makes 500 milliliter soft flasks.
Yeah.
With his LF2, he was like, I think the soft flask should be 650 milliliters, and I think it should have a locking lid. That was great. I think a lot of people like that. He's now introducing like a 320 milliliter soft flask that is meant for like these hip pocket of the short. And I think for a number of reasons, it's a great idea. One, to offer these like different size bottles because you can pair, if we're talking different length runs, but also just like pocket compatibility. And, there are times when like, I'm like, wow, the shorts I'm running in, I don't think a 500 milliliter bottle in the back and the front is right. There's too much bounce. And so I'll like drink half the bottle, or I'll empty half the bottle and put it back in and be like, this feels right. I think just like approaching it from a systems design of these shorts are meant to be made with, or paired with kind of like this style bottle. This pack's meant to be paired with, one of these and one of these, or this, volume bottle. It's a cool take. And I think the shorts are, in my opinion, they are innovative in the space. I haven't seen another short like it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I like how they're not abusing the term system. Like that truly is like an integrated system.
I think it's the exact same material that our on race shorts are made out of, including like the color of that like purple, which I was like, that's pretty nice. Cool. But the pocket setup looks like really well designed. And yeah, I think like seeing this and knowing he's going into apparel on the ski side as well, stock and raid, in my opinion, just like keeps going up. I think they're onto something. His designs are really impressive. I was stoked to see that drop today. I saw some samples earlier in the summer, and it's like this is different in a way that I think some people are going to realize they have wanted this, and like it's just never been out there to kind of have this comparison, or you didn't know you wanted it.
Like Ultimate Direction, like almost kind of did one with like a half tight that you could put like their like little 10-ounce bottles in, but it was still just like a plastic oval shaped bottle, like like more just like some half tights with a waist belt glued onto it. Whereas this sounds like like a little more innovative, and I feel like not too often do you see like a new like truly innovative idea that's coming out these days. It's getting harder and harder to find. So I appreciate that. Great find, Jeff.
Great find. Yeah. Brett, before we go, you're our last one. Best thing you found on the internet or elsewhere?
Well, my Lake Sonoma announcement was kind of both. The only other thing that I had written down right now was just like a debate that I was having with myself, which I think that's probably for a whole nother episode, but it was just like Jim versus Caleb in the U-Roy.
Oh.
And talk right now, I feel like Jim edged ahead with the Worlds because I was just looking at the results on Fantasy Free Trail. You can go search by athletes, and then now they have a whole category for their athletes of recent race results. So like I don't have to flip between like Ultra Sign Up and UTMB. So like I clicked Jim's name, I clicked recent race results, and it was like win at the Mesquite Canyon 50K, Chianti 100K, OCC World Long Trail. I'm like, damn, that's pretty good. Caleb was like Trans Gran Canaria, Salt Lake Hills 50K, and Western States, but then a Long Trail DNF. And it's like, how much weight is there in Western States versus like, what Jim did? So that was just
first half versus second half season, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One, I thought the construction noise going on was like a cello or something. I thought you were like listening to classical music. I was like, what is happening there? Two, I think you got to plug your running hat. If you don't have anything to say for best thing you saw on the internet, like plug yourself there, man.
That's there's still a few running hats left. I'll send Finn a link that he could throw it in the show notes, but don't forget your running hat, people.
As far as that conversation, like I'm with you. I think Jim edged ahead with a dominant performance in a super stacked field here and at OCC and at Chianti.
Chianti or Canfranc, which was the better performance?
Chianti.
Still
I mean,
Chianti.
I don't know. It sounds like Canfranc was like a super hard course, but those conditions like will forever be in my head.
All right, guys. Great episode as always. Appreciate it. And for those that have been tuned in until now, let us know in the comments how'd we do. And for the next episode, give us some ideas to chat about. Appreciate you, Jeff. Appreciate you, Brett. Until next time.